Welcome to the Pause with Pythian podcast. I'm your host, Pythian Priestess. Breathe in, tune in, and let's take a sacred pause together. The time is now. Let us begin. Hey everyone, just a note before we get started with the interview. When I recorded this, apparently I didn't plug in my microphone, so it sounds like I'm underwater. Sometimes I make mistakes, and I appreciate your patience with me as I become a solo podcaster. Enjoy the interview. Hello, mystics, and welcome back to Pause with Pythian. Today, I am honored to take a sacred pause with Benton Ryer, a modern shaman who draws from the ancient roots of Japanese, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it's Shinto. Is that right?
Shinto, yeah.
We're exploring energy healing, spiritual protection, and the life of a modern shaman. Benton, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me on. Not many people will,
Why? Why is that?
because they look at my content and because it's not something that they're used to, and because they have a platform they like to be perceived as an expert on. When somebody comes on can maybe that might be able to change the access of the conversation, they feel threatened, I guess.
Oh, well, I will be honest, I don't know a lot about Japanese shamanism, but my audience is a very curious bunch, and they ask me about Eastern practices in the modern world, and I don't know. So tell me a little about your tradition. What does it mean to be a shaman?
I am still learning things. I'm still learning a lot.
No, that's life.
So
Life is the process of learning.
when I've been on some other shows and I talk about Shinto, or the host announced somebody's going to talk about Shinto, they expect me to maybe talk about the history in Japan and Shinto. This is what you see when you go to the shrines and see the gates and the
Hmm.
nice temples. It's very performative. It's very beautiful, but it's not the same. There's a hidden aspect of Shinto, which is old Shinto, which is more like a personal practice of it. I have 2 volumes, beautiful volumes on esoteric Shinto. And I purchased them on Amazon in Japan.
Did you have to be initiated into
Well,
Shinto?
here's the thing. When it's shamanship, there's 2 ways for it to happen. If you're in like an indigenous tribe or a location where that's prevalent, the elders in that community might recognize you as having that gift, or and bringing you in to it and start training you. The other way for it is for the spirit to come to you and let you know. And
Yeah.
so that's the way. I wish it was the training way. It would be easier to explain to people and be more
Mhm.
believable. But no, it was the spirit. Omnitude also taught me, and basically through dreams and eventually physically, it's different. But third eye and even eyes open, and that's why I could do what I can do. After a very vivid dream, that's more like a soul travel session. Is like, okay, yeah, right, that was a weird dream. But the inkling came to me as like, well, maybe I should try. I'm into this esoteric stuff. Maybe I should try what she suggests. So I tried it and it worked. And this was during
Mm.
the pandemic, and it worked in a big way. I started with one person, then I was able to found I could do a few, and I could do groups as long as they're present, and there doesn't seem to be an upper limit.
Very
I do it
interesting.
live here on YouTube every night. Like, space and place doesn't matter. There's
Shinto, is it like Reiki in some ways? So I'm trying to help my listeners understand what it is.
I basically work with the sun goddess, and she is kind of a gatekeeper of this tradition. And, in other traditions, there's a gatekeeper. And if you try to bypass it, you're not going to get the essence of what it is.
Mm.
So, which is why I'm able to work on big groups in person or here on YouTube.
Yes, we'll definitely talk about your YouTube group because when I watched it, I saw that you were in someone's energy field. It looked like you were actually separated from them by at least a couple feet, and you were able to remove things from their energy field.
Yes. So it's the kami. do that. They kind of manage that gateway. Well, what are kami? They are the physical manifestations of the natural elements. They can become physical if they want to.
Mm.
However, for the most part, they remain unseen. So everyone has Reiki built inside of them. That's what the ancient term is. So it's explained in an ancient text that everyone has Reiki, but you have to align with the kami through purity, do ritual purification to align with them and be able to draw them. And it's much, much more than just energy. It's being
Mm.
able to control the elements, the classical elements, when you work on someone's energy field. You're not just shooting the person with energy. You are using the elements and also removal with often help with the kami to remove things that aren't supposed to be there. And the idea is once we're in that state, that divine state, which is kind of our original state, of brightness and purity, then we develop abilities. Anyone could do it. Everyone has that innate thing. It might not be the same way. Everyone does have something. And like the default for that is absolute clarity and focus on anything that you set your mind to. I'm not actually healing anything. I'm unblocking the impurity that divides the body or the physical body from the soul, which and it's the actual soul that heals the body. The way we got there is because we're away from nature and because our senses are dulled. Most people don't understand the esoteric aspects of life, so they're compromised in different ways and to different extents.
So this kind of spiritual weight or this impurity, what's
Right.
it caused
So it's
by?
when I say that, sometimes people go to, oh, this sounds like dogma, like sin, like you can't do this or that, but it's completely different. They're energetic impurities. We get those from other people, we get them through trauma, or we can get them through contact with extra sensory energies, unseen entities, parasites, things like that.
Hmm.
Everyone has these things. It's sort of part of the human condition now, whether they know it or not. Trauma being the big one. And it's probably because of trauma, but basically, people put this structure around themselves to protect themselves from trauma, where they pretend or act like it doesn't bother them. And it might not. However, what it does is distort their perception of the world. So they see the world through the wound of that trauma.
I
They have
understand.
so make it easier to understand. How many people do you know that have had one terrible relationship, then after that see all their potential relationships that way and act out to protect themselves?
I think
Because
you see that a lot.
you see that a lot. Andrew Tate is a prime example. He's the way he is because someone hurt him a long time ago, and it distorted his view of the world, and now it's built him an audience and it's distorted their view of the world too, because he's never
Mm.
healed from that trauma. He might say he has because he doesn't care anymore. However, he's viewing the world through that wound. When I release that trauma, people feel it like for like the whole day after, and they think, well, that didn't feel nice. Why am I so depressed? I think maybe I did something to them. And they don't really think that they're very slowly going forward, that their view of the world might be changing, which it does. And it has in myself too, as I've been practicing this.
So you just took one of the pillars that may have been the foundation of their worldview. So yeah, you are going to feel depressed. It is going to feel kind of weird. It might not be joyful.
I've had days after I've done the purification, it's like, why does my life feel so awful? And it's like, oh yeah, I just practiced that hard practice. Once you're able to identify that, you do feel better, but you feel like part of your worldview and like part of your person has been removed. But it was never you in the first place. This also happens with heavy parasites. When you remove a parasite, especially when people have lived with it a long time, most people have these things since they were born, by the way, especially
Oh,
really powerful. And not that these things are more powerful than us, they only are insofar as that most people can't see them or even acknowledge that they could even exist. So they're able to take things advantage of that way. But I've worked on people with possessions, I've worked people with who would call mentally ill and removing things. And people, you wouldn't really consider that. or might have like a really bad habit. And when you remove something from them, especially if it's something even too that later on latched onto that trauma, that which created like an anchor pit point for that thing too, and you remove it, they feel like part of them is missing and they can't put their finger on what it is. Of course, I normally never tell people that they have a parasite or a monster because that would just scare them.
Well, I have a couple of questions because I work with this stuff too, but in a different framework through Hermeticism. So, if the parasites are usually attached to you when you're born, what about people who like go ghost hunting?
Awful idea. They don't realize that things in the facility, and not just human spirits, but things because it's an open portal, can attach to them and stay and cause all these health problems and all this chaos and whatever else. Oh,
Wow.
I don't recommend it, but people do it anyway. So often
Wow.
people think one of the things that these things do is kind of co-opt someone's thoughts where the person thinks or perceives that the things they're thinking are their own, but they're not. So it'll
Mm,
push people away from their best interest. A lot of what New Age practitioners consider guides, they're actually parasites.
that's terrifying to think about.
It
Tell me more
is.
about that.
So, especially in the New Age communities, people consider everyone having like the spiritual life coach, which isn't the case. Because, first of all, if you're pure and you do enough removal, you can think clearly and make your own decisions.
Right.
You don't need an external force giving you advice on how to do that, which they never talk about anyway. None of these folks talk about removing impurities, right?
Well, I think there's a lot of Christian trauma there with being impure. That word is very triggering.
It's very triggering, but it's not the same. It's not the
Tell me.
same. Between the purity between Christian purity, when I say impurity, is I mean removing the impurities from your spiritual and energetic bodies. We get, like I said, we could get those from other people, trauma, entities, our experiences, or just being out in a bad environment.
And so the words that I use when I teach my students is we call it spiritual hygiene.
Hmm.
So learning how to cleanse yourself as powerful as you can and then also protect because there are ways to armor yourself from these things.
Self practice is important that you could do every day, especially when it comes to protection. People think that they could just do a protection ritual once and it'll be
Mm,
ongoing, but you really have to do it every day. But also too, especially if you are developing a certain amount of ability, it's important to have other people that can actually help you purify you because these things very often blindside you.
I have a group of healers that I work with. I work with an acupuncturist, for example. I
Hmm.
have worked with other healers, and I think that we all support each other. They're all women, but that's something that I think the West doesn't have is community.
There's no community. I hope no Reiki healers. You're not doing that, are you?
No, I don't visit any Reiki healers.
Good. And so I talked about the original meaning when it was first brought up by Amaterasu through text, through communication with priest and a temple. But before from that era onward, it was the word Reiki was mostly associated with wayward, malevolent spirits,
Mhm.
including Mononoke. Have you seen that show, Princess Mononoke, the movie?
Yes.
So basically, Mononoke means vengeful spirit. How I see it, so me, my apprentice, and we remove the attunements from people, and how we see it is a big hole in the heart. And it's over time, it can make people pretty sick or go a little crazy too. If anyone knows any people that have done Reiki for a long time, it's often the case. They're not, most of the Reiki practitioners I've met aren't always the most grounded people, which is another thing too. You have to ground your practice in reality, or
Mm.
else it's not going to work in reality.
Yeah, it sounds like, the world that you've bumped up a lot against is in that new age.
I think because some of their practices are dangerous. And I have an inclination to try to help these folks because they're doing more harm to people than good without even realizing it. There's a lot of channeling. There's a lot of letting things into your energy body. There's a lot of DNA unlocking. There's a lot of things like that. Attunements, things that you actually don't need and are actually just putting stuff in your energetic bodies that are more malicious than not.
Hmm. I just made a video recently about how I feel about most channelers online, and I don't think that they are doing the work beforehand in order to create that divine connection. I have a very difficult time believing that you just close your eyes and you're suddenly there and you can suddenly just say things.
So that I'm glad you brought that up. These people are obviously making everything up because there's no substance. But as I
Right.
started looking closer at people who are just saying whatever comes to mind, there are people who could channel and they have something anchored into their body, taken over. They're so naive to what these things intend. It's quite frightening, especially when they are saying things that I know are not true. But there's still something doing that to them to make them think that this is okay or healthy. It's because it's feeding off the attention. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Bashir.
He
There,
was a
there-
TV producer.
there's something going on there. And two things that really struck me. One of them is demons aren't real. The other thing is that there's going to be a time where everyone has to open themselves up to these ET intelligences. So I found it as almost a soft program to take over people's bodies. And even worse on that, on the other side, is a man named Jerry Sargent. He uses all the new age talk. He claims to channel from the void. He says it in plain language. I channel entities from the void. The beings I work with are from the void. And if anyone knows anything about anything esoteric, is you don't do that. As a matter of fact, the stuff I pull out of people, I put it in the void. He puts it in this benevolent ET language and that they're trying to heal people. And he's giving people attunements, doing their DNA. And he can heal people too, but he's not there anymore. But
Hmm.
he's doing these workshops where he's putting all this stuff in people. And over time, their personalities change and it does heal a little bit, but it does more damage than he lets on. And so there's a lot of people doing that, and it's a mistake for people who are deeply clairvoyant.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about fear and a lot of mistakes that people have made. What are some suggestions that you would give to people in order to make sure when they do try to contact spirit or angels that they are communicating with the actual thing and not an entity?
You have to purify, purify, purify because, like I said, people will follow guides, but they're basically just communicating with into something that's mostly attached to their spine and they're just stuck in a feedback loop. They might think that they're in contact with like Archangel Michael or Jesus or a host of others or guides. And these things might give them a little advice, but they're feeding off of them and they're not helping them that much. And they never talk about purification or looking inward and pulling things out, because that would mean eventually being able to identify them and pulling it out and destroying it.
So, what are things that you suggest, like a ritual bath? Do you need to fast for a
I
certain
mean,
amount
all
of
that,
days?
I wish I had an answer for that now. Here's the thing Shinto practice, it's the eighth or ninth biggest spiritual form in
Sure.
the world. It's quite big. And the tenet of it is self purification. And when you go to the esoteric side of that, it gets even deeper. And eventually you learn the cosmic truth of it. And when you get to that, the gates open and you can actually purify people to and yourself to a very profound extent. If you do the Golden Dawn ritual, the lesser banishing of the pentagram, that's a
Hmm.
good form of self purification, but you have to learn it and it has to be right too. It's quite complicated. And do not take any of the shortened versions because it was made for a certain way for a purpose. As a matter of fact, the Golden Dawn When they were actually training people, they made people do this ritual, their initiates, every single day. Because if you're not purified enough, you can't contact anything of a divine nature, or it's much harder. People might have that channel open innately from birth. However, they're still going to have interference and distortion. So
Hmm.
that's why purification is so important, because there's always going to be something jumping in and pretending to be that thing, even if you're in communication with that thing.
That's very interesting.
And the work's worth it too. It is worth it. It's hard. It is hard. Let me say that. It's not easy. It's not easy to sit with yourself and release past life trauma and this life trauma that you didn't even realize is there.
Yes, healing is a very difficult process, but the reward is great.
The reward is great.
So I was going to ask to talk a little bit about your online healing sessions.
People in the West are kind of hard to teach, to be frank. People tend to stick to their own ideas. When you introduce something else, they're skeptical, even if you're showing them that you could do something. And I'm telling them how to do it themselves. So here's the great thing about Shinto is that you don't convert to it. It doesn't have to be a soul practice. You can come to it. You can go to a shrine and purify. It's going to make it that much stronger and connect you more. So that's the great thing about it.
That is so cool. So, just for a personal question here, how do you balance walking this spiritual path that you're doing in your modern life and the
Well,
demands
I
of
mean, I'm not that spiritual,
Yeah?
but
Okay.
I do have abilities, and I use them because why not? And they help people, so why not? And that's what I do.
You wouldn't call yourself a spiritual person.
It's just the reality I work with every day. I mean, people spend their whole lives trying to seek one or two supernatural experiences, but the people who come to my purifications have one every day. So now it's just a matter of fact. Sometimes I forget that a lot of people don't have any experience at all. Yeah, it's not just a hobby, it's something that interacts with us daily, and we interact with it too, but mostly through ignorance. There's not really any dogma or real tenets in Shinto. You don't have to live a certain way, but it's your self purification and clarity, because when you have that, you've restored to your original self before you're born, before the first time we incarnated, what Shinto calls the age of the gods, when we all had that divine spark and had access to it.
Before you go, I like to ask all of our guests to either share a reflection, a teaching, or an affirmation. What would you like to share?
Usually on other shows, I've done the purification. Would you like to do that?
Let's do it. That sounds great.
Okay, so everyone, like I said, this could be very potent. It could be very strong. It's Japanese, it's Shinto. You're going to hear me say some Norito, which is a Japanese prayer. It's calling and asking for purification and protection. And I will go silent for a little bit. While I'm silent, just keep relaxing. For this, it's not quite a meditation, it's a purification. So mostly have people lie down and relax. If you can, pay attention to your thoughts and pay attention to your body. And without further ado, let's go. Amaterasu min oyano kami no minsu maru no 命照らし、急に静かなり。アマテラスミオヤの神のミスマルの命 照らし、国、静かなり。アマテラス、み、おやの、神の、みす、まるの、命、照らし、国、静かなり。高天張にかむずまります。カムロキ、カムロミのみこともして、すめみ、おやかむ、いずなぎの狼つくしの、ひまけの、立花の、大戸の、青木が春に、みそき、払い、たまいし、時に、あれませる。払いどの、狼たち、もろもろのまがごとつみかえりを、払いたまい、清めたまいと、まうすことのよしを。天津神、国津神、夜ずの神たちともに引っ越しますと、かしこみも回す。高天張りにかむずまります。かむろき、かむろみのみこともして、すめみ、おやかむ、いずなぎの狼つくしの、ひむくの、立花の、大戸の、青木が春に、みそぎ、払い、たまいし、時に、ありませる。払いどの狼たち、もろもろのまがごとつみかえりょ。払いたまい、清めたまいと申すことのよしを。天津神、国津神、夜ずの神たちともに引っ越しますと。かしこみも申す。高天張りにかむずまります。かむろき、かむろみのみこともして、すめみ、おやかむ、いざなぎの狼つくしの、ひむくの、立花の、大戸の、青木が晴れに、みそぎ、払い、たまいし、時に、ありませる。払いどの、狼たち、もろもろのまがごとつみかえりを、払いたまい、清めたまいと、まうすことのよしを。天津神、国津神、夜ぞの神たちともに引っ越しますと。かしこみも申す。どうすの神、あまていらします。すめみ神の身胸を伝えて教え導きの玉枠。人はすなわち、神との元のありじたり、何時らの紳士の痛ましむることなかれ。この家に目にもろもろの風情を見て、心にもろもろの風情を見ず、耳にもろもろの風情を聞きて、心にもろもろの風情を聞かず、口にもろもろの風情を言って、心にもろもろの風情を言わず、身にもろもろの風情に触れて、心にもろもろの風情に触れず、心にもろもろの風情を思とも、中心にもろもろの風情を思わず、この時に清く潔きことあり、もろもろののりは影と形のことし、清ければ汚れることなし、ことをとらばうべからず、皆花よりずの身とはなる。我が身はすなわち六根処女なり。六根処女なるがゆえに、ごぞの真君兄なり。ごぞの真君兄なりが、ゆえに天地の神とどなり。天地の神とどなるが、ゆえに万物の霊と体なり。万物の霊と体なりが、ゆえになすところにこって成就せずということなし。無常霊法、真珠仏教、天上仏教、名運理想、神奈川列、洗いたまい、清めたまい、守りたまい、先はいたまい、照らしたまい、導きたまい、高間の腹にかむずまります。すめ神たち、家わらしたも、特殊の水の宝持ちで、あまてる国てるひけ雨のほあかり、ひしたま、ねぎはやひのみことに、 静けたもこと教えてのたまわく、今しこの水の宝持ちて、中つくにに天下り、会う人草沈め収めよ。会う人草および、夜ずの者の病のことあらば、かむ宝を持ちて、見下いた沈みに起きて、見た目沈みの祭りを、なして水の宝を振るべ、そのかむほぎの言葉に曰く、木のい木のと、火のい火のと、土のい土のと、かのいかのと、水のい水のと、ひふみよいむなやこと。二のと古べゆるいら、かく祈りせばわかるともさらにきなんとしても。雨の神の御をやみこと乗りかけとまいて、雨の岩船に乗りて、河内の国の川上の光る画面に天下りましまして、大和の国、引きの山のふもと、白庭の高庭に移しましまして、月祭りとも、なぜけて、イスの神のお神と申し立て祭り、よよかむ宝を持ちて、夜ずの者のために、古べのかむごとを持ちて、つかすなしとゆえの古の見た目の神と敬い、立て祭り、すめみことおむらじおとどその神たけきを持ちて、いつきに使い祭りたも、もののべの神のやしろ雨がした、夜ずの者のたごいなり、いでもとかむ宝は、いわゆる、おきつ鏡、平つ鏡、やつくの剣、いく玉、たる玉、まかる返しの玉、知恵返しの玉、おろちのひれ、八のひれ、くすぐすのもののひれ、さらに徳すの神、木のい木のと、火のい火のと、土のい土のと、かのいかのと、水のい水のと、ひふみよ、いむ、なやこと。二のと古べ、いらずいら。貸し立て祭ることのよしをもちて、平らきくきこしめせと、命長くしそはね、時はかきわり、守りたまい、先はいたまい、かじ立て祭り、人数寿命心力かじ。All right, everyone, deep breaths. To kami, emi tamo, kangonshin, sonikandaken. Harai tamai kiyome tamo. One deep breath and exhale deep. Let energy work for a second. Kan nagara tamachiyamase. Kan nagara tamachiyamase. Kan nagara tamachiyamase. And there you have it.
Wow, you have all of that's amazing. That's like I was trying to time it. So about 8 minutes of memorized work and prayer. That's incredible. It was a little bit painful, particularly up here. It felt like I don't know how to explain it otherwise like than like
There's
a
a
needle
pool.
coming.
There's a pool, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like I said, even the best of us still have stuff, and
Yeah.
that's some
Crazy.
that's tough to to teach people
Yeah.
like
Well,
this.
I know how important the purification is, but I
It's,
think yeah, people don't like that word and people get very triggered when I try to talk about it.
you just have to explain to them it's not the same as like chastity. People right that I chastity and clutching pearls. It's not the same. It's getting stuff the f off of you.
Yeah. Well, that was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, Benton.
You're welcome.
For everyone listening, tell us where we can find you. We know you have a YouTube, but what's your handle?
So it's Benton Ryer for YouTube. On Instagram, it's Benton the Mage. If you want to check out my website, there's not much there, but it's esoteric shinto.com. I do one-on-one sessions too. I don't charge that much. And I'm able to go a little deeper because I have someone else with me, my apprentice, to hold the space, help hold the space. And we work on people. We get a little deeper. Physical stuff too, works too. Some of you may have noticed that, but also too, if you don't have that, it also helps clear and fortify and strengthen your spiritual abilities and gifts, I guess. I don't like calling them gifts because everyone has something. They just don't access them.
Yeah, I understand that because, like you said, it's innate in every single one of us. We choose
Hmm.
to awaken the power.
We choose to awaken, but more of that is unblocking them.
Thank you to you, Mystic, for joining us. And until next time, breathe deep, stay present, and let your light shine. Bye.